I like your hair.
Welcome, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us for this webinar. The title of the webinar is Discover the Oklahoma Native Assets Coalition. We're very excited to offer this program to you, and we'd like to give you a few housekeeping details. And so Desiree Lapahi will help me go over those.
Hi, everyone. So glad to have you join us. And some of the housekeeping things is that if you have a question or if you need technical assistance, go ahead and write in the chat box and we will try to help you. Or if you have any questions for the panelists, go ahead and write it down in the chat box. And that's all I have for today. Back to you, Becky.
Hi, everyone. I'm having some trouble with my screen share, so I apologize. But I'm very delighted to welcome our two presenters today from the Oklahoma Native Assets Coalition. First, we have Christine Finsel, who is a tribal citizen of the Osage Nation. She is the executive director of the Oklahoma Native Assets Coalition and has been conducting native asset building research and administering asset building programs since 2003. Since 2006, Ms. Finsel has provided training and technical assistance to native asset building practitioners through various contracts. She holds an MA in theology from St. Louis College and a Master's of Arts in social work from Washington University in St. Louis. Our second presenter is Karen Adair Edwards, who's the manager of the Native Banking ONAC initiative. Karen Adair Edwards is a citizen of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. She currently serves as manager of the Native Banking ONAC initiative for the Oklahoma Native Assets Coalition. From 1994 to 2006, Ms. Edwards led several asset building projects at the program, policy, and research levels as administrative director of the Center for Social Development at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. She retired from the university in 2006 and became a private consultant. In that capacity, she continues to work in the asset building field in an advisory capacity for such entities as ONAC, First Nations Development Institute, the National Congress for American Indians, and the Administration for Native Americans. So over to you, Christy and Karen, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Becky. We're honored to be able to join today. And so I'll start off and then Karen will also share some information. We are working together along with other staff and some consultants to administer native asset building programming and supports. So as Becky mentioned, I'm a citizen of the Osage Nation, and I started coordinating ONAC in 2011. Karen is actually my predecessor, and so we're happy that she's back working with ONAC at this time and has come out of retirement to help us with some projects. So I thought I'd just give you an overview about the Oklahoma Native Assets Coalition, a little bit about our history and our current programming, and some resources that are available to you all. So ONAC was started in 2001, and it is a Native-led asset building coalition. We started in Oklahoma, and now we are serving in a nationwide capacity, though we have kept our name because it's familiar to people. We are working kind of in a variety of ways. So one, we are now offering intermediary funding. So we are a grant maker. We also do direct program administration of a few different programs. I'll explain about those in a minute. And then we still try to build capacity for tribes and Native-led nonprofits to also administer asset building programs. And we became a 501c3 in 2014. When we think about kind of our work, we're trying to address the racial wealth gap. And that is coming across through all of our integrated asset building programs. And we're also trying to reduce the wealth gap for women. So we try to target some of our programming, but also it just typically has been that sometimes more women are the ones that are applying to become account owners. In terms of our programming, as I mentioned, we do offer at this time some invitation only grants, so mini grants and some larger grants to tribes and Native-led nonprofits to administer their own asset building programs. Currently, a lot of the funding is going out towards voluntary income tax assistance sites, so Native sites, and then also to some entities that are doing emergency savings accounts and children's savings account programming. We're administering the National Native EITC and VITA network, and we're really pleased that Patsy Schramm, who's Cherokee, has restarted that network nationally on our behalf. And so if individuals are interested in thinking about how they could support their local tribal communities with more voluntary income tax assistance work, we'd be really happy to have you participate. And we'll share some information in the blog post and then elsewhere for how you could reach Patsy. We provide some training and technical assistance and national research. So for example, this week we held a 2-day train the trainer for Native specific financial education. We plan to hold another one in later January. If you'd like to join our email distribution list, you could know when those are coming up. And those are to try to help individuals be able to provide financial education in their communities, so Native specific financial ed. We also provide free technical assistance. So if your entity that you're working with or tribe that you're working with is interested in being able to provide some asset building programming, we can help provide the free TA on that. And then we've published recently some information about Native children's savings initiatives in the US, and also about Native women business owners, and some kind of lessons learned and things that have worked well for some Native VITA sites as they've gone remote during the pandemic. We do coordinate some with the FTC. We've done some joint webinars related to preventions of frauds and scams. And we are also working soon with some Native women that responded to a survey we put out this summer. These are Native women business owners, and trying to help a little bit with some mentorship options for them, individuals that had expressed interest in doing that work. We administer the, to my knowledge, the only seed funded national in scope Native children's savings account program. So where we provide $100 opening account deposits. We work with tribes and Native-led nonprofits on the outreach for those. And we also are administering emergency savings accounts. During the pandemic, as of May 15th, we received funding to launch the first Native COVID emergency cash assistance response fund. And with those funds, we're trying to get money out directly to families. And we're working with a variety of tribes and Native-led nonprofit partners to help us to identify the families that they're working with on the ground that are experiencing financial distress, and then trying to get funds out that way. And then, as Karen will talk about, we're administering the first Native Bank On initiative. We also provide free financial coaching. So if any of you or you have family members or friends that are Native that are in need of either homebuyer ed or basic financial management, or budgeting help, or some credit counseling, we have a registration form, and we'd be happy to connect you that way. So that's a little bit about our programming. I thought I'd turn it over to Karen so she could talk a little bit more about the Native Bank On efforts to try to get people into safe and affordable accounts. Karen?
Thanks, Christy. As Christy said, we're now administering the first Native-oriented Bank On initiative in the country. It's called Native Bank On ONAC. The reason being that Native communities often get kind of lost in the shuffle when these types of national initiatives come out. Typically they work through large nonprofits, and the large nonprofits may not be serving Native communities in any type of large capacity. When we discovered that 44% of people in Native communities often don't have a bank account, or they might have a bank account, but they don't actually use that account. Most often they use some type of alternative financial service, such as a payday lend.
I think she froze.
Yes, I think we're having a little bit of an issue with internet connection.
Okay.
Would you like to jump in, Christy, please?
Yes, please. Thanks. So with the Native Bank On, are you back on, Karen?
Was I gone?
You froze. Okay, I'll let you continue.
Okay, is it back on again?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank
Sorry, I don't know where I froze.
you were just kind of getting started.
Oh, okay. So what we hope to do with the Bank On initiative is to enable more tribes to offer and connect their citizens to bank accounts that have low fees, no hidden fees, that accept tribal IDs, that have direct deposit features, bill pay capabilities, without people having to pay a large amount of money for any of those things, and that those types of features are able to be used and utilized. We became the first Native Bank On initiative. Across the country, there are around 84 of these types of Bank On coalitions, where they have the Bank On, the main Bank On initiative, which is operated through the Cities for Empowerment Fund, working out of New York. It's initially was developed to try to address more large city urban issues, but has since then expanded into working in more rural communities, and trying to get a larger group of people banked. So there are about 80, I think there are like 60 banks across the country, and about 22,000 branches now that are offering these types of accounts. The account itself has to go through a certification process that establishes that, yes, indeed, they do offer these particular features that people need and want in their bank account. You can't be turned down for an account most of the time. This is one of the features that's recommended, and most banks have picked up on it. You can't be turned down just because you perhaps have had an account and had issues with the account. You had a problem with overdrafts or check system. The only way you can actually be turned down for this account is if you actually committed bank fraud, which I don't think many people have done. Like, as I said, the types of features that are offered are really helpful to everyone, particularly the fee schedule, because you cannot be charged with most bank accounts. You're charged a monthly fee of anywhere from $20 to $25, and that's the basic account. If you don't have a balance of X amount of dollars, let's say $500, $1,000 in the bank, with this one, you can't be charged more than $60 a year for that maintenance fee for your account. And most banks, at least I would say maybe about 60% of the banks, don't charge any monthly maintenance fee. You're only charged a minimal amount. You can't be charged more than $3 to use an ATM that's out of network. So the bank itself won't charge you for using their ATM, but even if you use an out of network one, you can't be charged more than $3 from the bank. So it has many features that are really good. What we're hoping to do is connect these accounts. Christy mentioned the cash assistance program that ONAC is doing. ONAC is also offering emergency savings accounts, children's savings accounts. sometimes those are offered through particular programs that require a different type of account, but many times you can open a regular transactional bank account to hold those accounts, or traditional savings account. And that's what we're hoping to do, is to offer and to help people get connected to accounts that they can actually use and that aren't going to cost them a lot of money. This account in particular doesn't have overdraft fees. So if you were to take what you did with this account into a world of alternative services, you would probably be paying anywhere between $450 and $1,000 a year to get the same features that this account offers you for either nothing or very low amounts of money. And that can really and truly add up. And it appeals, I think. Now, a lot of this is online banking, and these are what are called checklist accounts. So you do most of your banking through a debit card, or a pay card, or online. And that can be scary. I know, I'm in my 70s. It can be scary to use that kind of format to do your banking, but actually it's pretty easy. If you're in a place that perhaps does not have, did I cut out? No. If you're in a place that does not maybe have internet access, easy internet access, or if you don't have a phone that you can use, and granted, I mean, only my grandchildren know how to do that stuff really easily. It is a learning curve, but if you aren't in a place that has that kind of access, then there are many banks. We work with some Native owned banks in Oklahoma, and we're starting to work with banks, trying to get some banks certified that work on a national level. Chickasaw Community Bank is one that we're working with to get credited for these accounts. Native American Bank is another one out of Colorado and they would have a national capability to get you into this. But there are local banks that do this. In Oklahoma, we have two, at least one tribally owned bank, and a couple of other banks that are close enough to folks that they can go and open the account through the drive-through, and they can do their banking through the drive-through if they want to. So it doesn't all have to be done online, but if you can do it online, it's a pretty easy thing to do. And there is also a free bill pay feature. So what we're trying to do is give people a good alternative, particularly now when so many checks, so many types of payments come to folks. If you're like me, I get Social Security payments that come directly into my bank account. So you have to have an account that has a direct deposit feature. During the COVID crisis, we've already had one economic impact payment that went out from the government. You may have gotten it. And if you did, it was probably deposited directly into an account. If you didn't have a bank account for it to go into, you may still be waiting for that particular payment. So what we're hoping is that we can get people to establish these accounts. Some of them can be established with a zero balance, and they can't charge you any more than $25 to actually open the account. But many of them really do. You can just open the account. You don't have to put money in initially. So what we're hoping is to get these types of accounts established so that people can accept a lot of the checks that are trying to come into folks during this terrible time. So I think that's probably the main important amount of information that we have on this. And we can open it up maybe to questions. Turn it back over to Rebecca.
Christy, would you like to do anything else, or would you like to stop for questions now? Thank you very much, Karen. That was fascinating.
Sure. I'll just mention that in the blog post, there are some slides, and the slides in the PDF version have live links. So if people are interested in some of the papers and the data summary briefs and so forth, or even handouts about how to claim your economic impact payments that Karen just mentioned, and how to get some more information about Native Bank On. We have all of those with live links there. So if you'd like to check that out afterwards, we welcome you to do so. And also just to mention that we also have links and email addresses in those slides for how to join the ONAC email distribution list. We try not to overwhelm people with too many emails, but they do come out periodically. And then if you are also specifically interested in that earned income tax credit and VITA network, we have Patsy Schramm's contact. If you'd like more specific information about the Native Bank On work, Karen's information is there. And then we do have that link for their registration. I just wanted to mention on that financial coaching, it's all done by phone and teleconference. It's free to you and to any American Indian or Alaska Native in the US, regardless of where they live. And it's just scheduled at a time that's mutually agreed upon between the Native certified coach and the individual interested in, you know, exploring some of these financial coaching options. So we just offer that if anyone is interested. So if you'd like to support ONAC's work, we welcome you to join as a member. And then also we have set up a COVID relief fund. So if you or others are in a position where you'd like to help support Native families, we're trying to get those funds out equitably by region in the US. So I'll just mention those things, and then we're happy to take any questions or any comments.
Thank you, Christy and Karen. So impressive what you're doing. And I wanted to point out to everyone that there is a link to all the things that Christy was telling you about in the chat box, and you can click that link and go directly to that site where all that information is. And if people want to ask a question, they can either put it in the Q&A box, which is down at the bottom with the little bubbles. And then there's also one that says chat, and you can type in your question there if you have one. I have a couple of questions. Why do you think that financial coaching is, what's the value of financial coaching?
So, you know, it's something we've been hoping to offer for a while, and it admittedly took us a while to raise the funds to be able to do so, but we have them now. And, you know, within all of ONAC's programming, the financial ed is really important, but historically ONAC has always tried to think about how do you link that financial ed with an actual asset building tool, you know, so that it's practical and that it really helps people to build their assets. So the financial coaching is just kind of one more wraparound resource that is available to Native families. And, you know, if individuals still might be employed or in a position where they're ready to try to get a house during this pandemic to reduce overcrowding at home, or just because, you know, their family size is ready to do something different, or their family's ready to have a house, the home buyer ed can be helpful. And then thinking about, you know, especially now we're experiencing a lot of conversations with families saying, we were doing okay before this. This pandemic has really knocked us, you know, out of our budget, and we're trying to figure out, what do we absolutely have to pay first? How do we do that? How do we keep our home? And, you know, how do we think about how to make this work during this really difficult time? So if that becomes of need to individuals, that might be useful. And then, you know, just thinking about credit as an asset. So how do we know what our credit score is? What steps could we take to improve that credit score, just so that, you know, it would help us to be able to make purchases that we like to in the future. And so Felicia Freeman is an enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, and she's certified, and we're working with her to provide those services, and she does a great job. And so she could just, you know, work with you or whomever's interested, you know, the individual applying or registering for the service, and kind of take your lead. What do you want to work on? And she'd be happy to help you do that.
That's an amazing resource to offer. I think that's really wonderful. When people are kind of going through COVID and all the setbacks financially, they may need someone to walk them through what the next best step is. So I think that's an amazing thing you're doing. Karen, I'm so impressed with this, all the resources you have available, and the idea that there's a way to work around the fact that you don't have maybe you don't have good internet, and you're able to do drive-through banking. It's
Yes.
such a great creative solution.
Yes, it is. We were very happy that the banks have cooperated with that way.
And is this in other places? You mentioned a Colorado bank. There's other places across the country that are doing this?
We believe there are. I mean, we haven't, at this point, we haven't worked with smaller banks across the country. We know that that big banks across the country actually want people to open online, but the smaller banks, we assume that if the smaller banks in Oklahoma are doing this, they're not alone. So I'm thinking that there are probably many other smaller banks that have gone to a drive-through type transaction process for folks so that they can stay open and still do what they need to do with banking.
Well, that's really neat. That's really neat. If anyone on the call has any questions for either Christy or Karen, please feel free to put them in the chat box. We have a little more time. Karen, you've been working in this field for many years, I see. And I didn't realize that you were involved with ONAC before. So coming out of retirement, it's nice. That's not really a question, I guess.
It is nice. It's delightful to work with Christy. When I first started working with Christy, I was just starting I had gotten some funding at WashU to start some of these types of asset building initiatives in Native communities. And Christy was a graduate student at that time working also to try to develop these same types of things with Native communities. So I was able to take her advantage of her being a student and enslave her into this work. And she's done very well with it so far. It delights me that now she's my boss. So yeah, I'm happy to be able to do this and stay active in the Native community.
It's a wonderful contribution to helping people build assets. And Christy, what drives you about this work? What has kept you going over all this time with such a wonderful mentor?
Yes, I am lucky. I think I had studied social work and theology, and earlier on I had done taught high school, and I did some service learning work at a university level. So I was interested from the community end about how to, have community change. And then I was introduced to the asset building work, specifically the Native asset building work. And I really love program development. It's fun for me, actually. So thinking about how to make this really work for any community. And so in this space, I've been able, thankfully, to be able to try to make it work within Native communities. And it's an honor and really a privilege. And I'm grateful to have been able to do this work as long as I have been able to. So I just think it's important. And I think it makes a difference in people's lives. And it really, it's not just about the individuals and then the families. What I love about Native asset building work is that it's about building our communities. And so how can we be strong together? And it's making sure that we can build individual, family, and community assets. And we've tried to think about how to have this really work with culturally appropriate ways of doing it. And so it's challenging and it's exciting, and I'm very grateful to work with a great team. This is probably the strongest team that we've been able to have working with ONAC so far, and it's just relieving and also wonderful to be able to have so many people that have good hearts and good minds about trying to make these things work.
Thanks a lot. I notice, and Kayla's helped me realize that we do have a question, and I'm going to click the button to allow her to talk. Linda, can you unmute yourself, or maybe I can unmute you? bear with me.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with my phone. I may be in the dark here, but I'm so excited about this. I see so many opportunities I live in a small town, Tonganoxie, Kansas, and we have a lot of a large Native community throughout Kansas. And I see so many opportunities for these small banks. How can I get them? I'd be willing to take your information around and try to get them involved with you guys if that's possible in any way. Get them connected to you. Is there some way that I can do that?
Linda, if you've got my contact information, which I think you have on the
Yeah.
things that, yeah, there we go. So you've got my contact information. Just on only my email is on there, but just so email me and we'll connect with each other and we'll talk about that. I think we can. I lived in Kansas for 6 years not too long ago, so so I'm pretty familiar with what goes on there too. So we can have a conversation about that.
Okay, that's great because the bank that I use already does the drive-through stuff, and we have pretty much laxed. They're not real. I think they would go for something like this, in other words. But I think it's a great opportunity, and it's a wonderful program, and I just think it's wonderful.
Well, good. We'll talk about it. I'm sure we
Okay.
can
Okay.
we can look at what's possible.
Okay, that's great.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Linda, for your interest in trying to broaden this out. And everyone, the time has passed very quickly and we're a little bit over time, and I want us to be respectful of everyone's day. But I think this has been a wonderful session, and I'm so thankful to Christy and Karen. Thank you for sharing your expertise and the good work you're doing.
Thank
And
you for the
this
opportunity. Yeah.
And this webinar will be posted on our website and our YouTube channel for people to look at later on. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.